Put $100 into a slot machine. Statistically, the house keeps somewhere between $8 and $12 of it. Do that across 2,000 machines, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and the math looks unbeatable. A business that mathematically cannot lose money. Spinning reels that are legally required to pay out less than they take in forever. No inventory spoilage. No seasonal demand collapse. Just a machine that prints a small, guaranteed margin over and over at a scale no coffee shop or restaurant ever touch. Except that between 2018 and 2023, more than 1 in 5 regional casinos in the United States either defaulted on debt, sold at a loss, or shut their doors entirely. Atlantic City alone lost 5 of its 12 casinos in the space of a single decade. This is an industry with a rigged game in its own favor, running at a house edge that never wavers, and it still produces bankruptcies on a regular schedule. So how does a business that cannot lose a single hand still go broke? The first mistake happens before a single card is dealt, and it looks nothing like gambling. It's a real estate and zoning decision. How big do you build the floor? A small operation, say 200 slot machines and 8 tables, keeps overhead low, but also caps your ceiling. On a good Saturday night, you're turning away customers, and every turned away customer is revenue you will never get back because they don't come back Tuesday to make up for it. Build big instead. 2,000 machines, 100 tables, a hotel tower, and now you can absorb any crowd. But you've also built a fixed cost structure that runs whether the floor is empty or full. Staffing, electricity, HVAC, keeping a football field size room at 68 degrees, security payroll, surveillance systems watching every square foot. A property that size needs roughly $40,000 to $60,000 a day in fixed overhead just to open the doors. Occupancy be damned. Almost nobody chooses the middle tier on their first try, and almost everyone wishes they had. Here's the problem. Everyone assumes the money is made or lost on the game itself. It isn't. It's made or lost on everything wrapped around the game, and that's where the real teardown starts. Take a single slot machine, the most basic unit in the entire building. A player feeds it $500 across a session. The machine is programmed to a 92% return, meaning the theoretical hold. The house's cut is 8% or $40. That $40 looks like pure profit. It is not. First, the state gaming tax, which in most commercial jurisdictions runs between 20% and 50% of gross gaming revenue. Call it 35% here or $14. Gone before the casino touches the money. Next, labor. The machine doesn't run itself. Floor attendants, slot technicians, chain staff, and security allocate out to roughly 18% of gross revenue on the gaming floor, another $7.20. Then comps, the free drinks, the discounted buffet, the loyalty points that convert to free play, average around 12% of theoretical win. For a mid-tier player, another $4.80. Add maintenance and machine depreciation. So a modern slot cabinet costs $15,000 to $25,000 and needs replacing every 5 to 7 years. Call it 6% or $2.40. Add processing and vault handling costs on the cash itself. Another 2% or 80 cents. Add property overhead, rent, insurance, utilities allocated per machine, running close to 15% or $6. Run the total. $40 of theoretical win, minus $14 in taxes, $7.20 in labor, $4.80 in comps, $2.40 in depreciation, 80 cents in processing, $6 in overhead. What's left is $4.80. That's not 8%. That's not even close to it. That's a net margin of roughly 12% of the house's own theoretical edge, which means on that $500 wagered, the casino's actual take-home profit is under 1% of total handle. One documented mid-sized regional property with $180 million in annual gross gaming revenue reported net operating income of just $23 million the same year, an operating margin of 12.7%. Not the 80% everyone imagined when they pictured a rig game, about 13%. The house edge was never the profit margin. It was just the starting line. If the game itself barely survives its own overhead, the obvious fix looks like volume. More players, more machines running, more hands dealt. So why doesn't it work that way? because demand isn't flat, and the floor's cost structure is. A casino's real customers show up in a narrow window, Friday night through Sunday afternoon, plus a handful of holiday weekends, carry the majority of annual play. Outside that window, on a random Tuesday afternoon, the floor might run at 20% capacity, but the dealers are still on shift. The surveillance room is still staffed at full strength because regulation requires it regardless of crowd size. The HVAC is still cooling an empty room. Labor cost per gaming hour on a slow Tuesday can run 3 to 4 times higher than the same cost on a packed Saturday because the payroll doesn't shrink to match the thinner crowd. You can't send half your security team home for 4 hours and call them back. Push harder to fill that Tuesday with promotions and free play offers, and you often bring in players whose theoretical win doesn't cover the cost of the free play itself. Busy is not the same thing as profitable, and a packed floor on the wrong night can lose more money than an empty one. If volume alone doesn't save the math, then the question becomes who's actually generating the profit that keeps the lights on. Segment the players and the picture sharpens fast. The casual visitor, someone who comes in 3 or 4 times a year, plays $100 to $200 a trip, generates maybe $600 to $800 in annual theoretical win, most of which gets eaten by the same cost stack as before. The regular local weekly visits, $150 to $300 a session, generates $8,000 to $15,000 a year, and this is the base the property is built on. Then there's the top tier, the premium or VIP player, sometimes called a whale in the industry's own internal language. Someone with a credit line, a dedicated host, and a theoretical win north of $100,000 a year, sometimes into 7 figures. Industry data from public casino operators consistently shows that the top 5% of carded players generate somewhere between 60% and 80% of total gaming revenue. The average transaction on the floor is almost meaningless. The real economics live entirely in the tail. And a handful of players at a casino will comp a $2,000 suite, a private jet pickup, or a 5-figure dining tab to protect, because losing one of them is like losing 400 casual visitors at once. Every loyalty card, every free buffet, every point system on the floor exists to sort players into that tail and keep them there. None of that changes the fact that the building itself is its own financial trap, often before a single chip is placed. Commercial casinos rarely own their land outright. Many operate on ground leases or, in tribal and some state markets, revenue share agreements that function like rent on steroids. A common structure charges a percentage of gross gaming revenue rather than a flat fee. Say, 10% of the first $50 million, stepping up to 15% beyond that threshold. Cross that breakpoint, and every additional dollar of revenue carries an extra 5 point of cost the operator didn't have the month before. A property doing $52 million a year isn't just paying more rent. It's paying a materially higher rate on its best months, which is exactly when it can least afford and notice. Layer on top of that the gaming license itself, which in competitive jurisdictions can cost $50 million to $100 million upfront just for the right to operate, plus annual renewal fees, plus a personal financial guarantee from the operating group that puts individual assets on the line if the property defaults. The lease isn't just a cost line. It's a lock-in clause with the operator's own house attached to it. None of that is visible on opening night, and neither is most of what it actually took to get there. Before a single slot machine pays out its first dollar, the build-out bill is already stacked up. Surveillance alone, the eye-in-the-sky camera network required by regulators to cover every inch of the gaming floor, runs $2 million to $5 million for a mid-sized property. A cash vault and count room infrastructure, built to exacting security and audit standards, adds another $1 million to $3 million. Slot machines themselves, leased or purchased at $15,000 to $25,000 apiece across a floor of 1,000 units, run $15 million to $25 million before a single spin. Background checks and licensing for every employee who touches money or gaming equipment add another $500,000 to $1.5 million, depending on staff size. Fire suppression and life safety systems for a building that large run $3 million to $6 million. Add architectural build-out, HVAC size for a casino floor's unusual heat load, and ADA compliance across the property, and the number often lands between $80 million and $150 million before the business ever opens. And that's before regulators finish inspections that can stretch 6 to 18 months, quietly burning to the operator's runway while the building sits finished but silent. Even a property that survives all of that isn't safe from a single bad stretch. Picture one ordinary week. The surveillance system's primary server fails on a Wednesday, triggering a mandatory shutdown of the affected pit under most state gaming regulations until backup systems are certified. A full day of lost table revenue, roughly $180,000. 2 dealers call in sick the same week, forcing overtime pay for replacements at 1.5x rate. A slot machine malfunction on the floor pays out a disputed jackpot that takes 4 days and a regulatory review to resolve, tying up $40,000 in reserve during the dispute. Then a snowstorm, the same kind that shut down Atlantic City's boardwalk casinos for days at a stretch during past winters, keeps the property's highest value regulars home for the weekend that was supposed to cover the whole week's overhead. None of this is a black swan event. It's a normal week with 4 ordinary problems stacked on top of each other, and lost weekend players don't show up the following Tuesday to make it up. That revenue is simply gone. Against all of that, the independent regional operator is also fighting a competitor who doesn't play by the same cost structure at all. A single Las Vegas Strip mega resort can generate over $2 billion in annual revenue, spread across gaming, hotel, dining, and entertainment, which means its gaming floor doesn't have to carry the property alone. A bad month on the tables could be absorbed by a sold-out residency and a full hotel tower. A 400-room regional casino has no such cushion. Its gaming floor is often 70% or more of total revenue, meaning it is almost nowhere to hide a slow quarter. The small operator can't win on price, since the house edge is set by regulation and barely moves between properties. It can't win on scale, since it can't match a mega resort's marketing budget or air routes, bringing in visitors from 3 time zones away. What it can win on is proximity and relationship. Being a place 15 minutes from home where the host remembers your name, your usual table, and your birthday, which is a form of loyalty that no billboard on the Strip can manufacture. And that proximity points toward the part of the business that was never really about gambling at all. The gaming floor is the loudest part of casino and, increasingly, not the most profitable one. Hotel rooms carry gross margins north of 60% once built, since the marginal cost of an occupied room is mostly housekeeping and utilities. A well-run steakhouse or nightclub inside the property can post margins competitive with the casino floor itself, without a gaming tax attached to a single dollar of it. Retail licensing, branded merchandise, and, increasingly, the online sports betting and iGaming license attached to the physical property now often generate margins double or triple that of the slot floor, because the marginal cost of a mobile wager is close to zero once the platform exists. $1 of online sports betting margin can be worth $4 or $5 of slot floor margin once every downstream cost is stripped out. The gaming floor still fills the building, sells the story, and photographs well for the brochure. It was never the profit center. It was the marketing department, run one year through the business twice, starting from the same $180 million in gross gaming revenue. In the version where things go right, the property holds its promotional spend at 8% of revenue instead of letting it drift, keeps labor overtime under control through a mild winter with no storm closures, avoids a single major jackpot dispute, and its top 20 VIP players all return without a competitor's host poaching them. Net margin lands near 15%, and the ownership group walks away with roughly $27 million. In the version where ordinary bad luck shows up, one surveillance outage, a slower-than-usual convention calendar, 2 VIP hosts leaving for a rival property and taking $6 million in annual play with them, a promotional campaign that overshoots its budget by 20% chasing a Tuesday crowd that never fully materializes. The same $180 million in revenue nets out closer to 6%, or roughly $10.8 million. Same top line. A $16 million gap between the 2 years, and nothing separating them but a handful of ordinary things going slightly wrong instead of slightly right. So picture that slot machine again, the one that mathematically cannot lose. It never did lose. The house edge held exactly as programmed every single spin. What almost went broke around.